Hey, hi, it's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you again. It's a privilege,
Yes,
actually.
yes, nice to see you again. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations to you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So when we had our conversation last time, I had to go and search more and more about you, and I discovered your book of where you highlight the 50 women who have been trailblazers, and it's amazing to see that there were women who are doing a lot of work but were not as famous as the men. And it shows us just how far we have come in the last 100 years with those 50 women. It's really amazing. But if there's one thing before we dive into the conversation, if there's one thing you'd like everybody to take away from our conversation, what would that be?
The resilience and determination of women throughout the centuries, especially during times when women had even fewer rights and, for example, were barred from holding certain positions in society, were banned from getting an education. So many women around the world made significant accomplishments, yet most of their accomplishments, unfortunately, remain unknown today. And these women should really be household names and be featured in our history books. And a lot of them continue to be overlooked.
Okay, that was amazing. That is true. We need to see how women like you inspire me a lot because of the work you do and the resilience, like you said, that you continuously show. I recently saw a post of yours where you posted about women in Afghanistan and all the troubles and the injustices that they are going through. It's sad to see that my country is ranked as number 8. I actually learned it from you. It's ranked number 8 on the gender
Global
index.
gender.
Yes. So from your experience, what drives change for gender equality? What drives the progress? Because we know that progress is not linear.
Irene, first of all, thank you for your kind words. I think you're a remarkable young lady, and I honestly find all your work, I've looked into all your work, so inspirational, and just want to give you a shout out. And I think you're just so awe-inspiring. But what it takes, and you're lucky to live in a country that ranks in the top 10 on the Global Gender Gap Index. Believe it or not, the US, where I live, comes in at number 43, which is really surprising given that it is seemingly at the forefront of progress where women are concerned. But what it takes to achieve gender equality, obviously, gender equality does not come about of its own accord. It requires consistent work, it requires collective work. It requires targeted action. It requires legal reform, effective policy making, gender budgeting, gender quotas, partnerships, for example, among the private sector and women and human rights organizations. But those are just to be able to gain equality, to have equal, opportunities with men. The other challenging, equally challenging area is shattering stereotypes about women. And for example, stereotypes about women in the STEM fields, which is actually your field. Uh, you are
Yes.
you are studying mining engineering, and that is incredible because, as you well know, globally, women still hold less than 30% of uh, roles in the STEM field. In leadership position in STEM, the numbers are even less. And one of the reasons women continue to lag in the STEM fields is not because they're not capable, which is the stereotypical assumption, which is nothing more than a myth, is because of the biases that permeates within this field and translates, cyclically, century after century, into women are obviously not as capable because there are not that many women in STEM. And I remember when I was talking to you, you mentioned even though you're living in a country that has made significant progress with respect to gender equality, you have closed 80% of the gender gap, which is really, really remarkable. But you were still talking to me and telling me about the biases that you faced within your academic community. Would you be comfortable talking about that? Because I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing how you've handled that situation.
Yes. So recently I had to run for student leadership, and I was running for the position of the Secretary General, which is quite a big position.
Mhm.
And I was shocked because I think men in my generation, or at least I thought men in my generation are more aware, they are more informed that women are capable. But I got to know that there were men who were coming to me, men of my age, telling me that they are not going to vote for me because I am a girl, and there's no way they are going to put a young girl in a position such as Secretary General, because when the president is not the Secretary General, usually takes up the role of presidency. So they were not going to give me such a big position. And I was shocked. That was my first time, I believe, experiencing such stereotypes. I would always talk about them, tell people about them, but it was never a first-hand experience. So
What was your reaction when you were faced with such an explicit bias about just simply because you're a girl?
I
What
was
did it derail you, or were you even more determined to forge ahead?
I was so sad and brokenhearted because I was like, if this is what I'm going through, what are other girls around the world who don't have policies like the ones we have in Namibia? And it showed me that although policies may be there, although the constitution might talk about all of these things, the problem really is enforcing these policies, enforcing them in people's beliefs, and taking away the gender norms that exist in our society. So the real problem really isn't the policies not being there, but the actual problem is the norms, these beliefs that exist in our societies are the hardest to eliminate, because there is no way a boy who is of my age would think like that. I was totally shocked, but it also drove me. It drove me to do more in closing the gender gap that exists in our societies,
Mhm.
especially in rural areas.
I think you're correct in that. I think the problem here lies that globally there's not enough women in leadership positions, and you're absolutely nailed it with that. So if you look at the statistics, women only hold 33% of senior management positions, right? If you look at Fortune 500 companies, women only account for 10% of CEOs. And there's that very well-known saying in the US made by Marianne Wrights Edelman, a famous civil rights activist. She said, you can't be what you can't see, right? So raising the visibility of not only female leaders, but also being able to get more women in leadership positions so the men don't hold these biases that, what are you talking about? You're running for something. We don't see you in that position. So in order for a man or a boy to say, we can see you in that position, we need to have more female leaders. So I think that's part of the problem too. So until women get into the system, they're not able to move the needle on these narratives, biased narratives that continue to, unfortunately, despite progress, continue. So one of the important components, and you asked me earlier about achieving gender equality, is shattering these stereotypes. Stereotypes that you have experienced, and you live in a country, as you said, that's very progressive when it comes to women's rights. And unfortunately, you are also dealing with these biases that, and I always say you can eliminate every gender discriminatory policy in law, but what is equally challenging is to change the mindset that people
Yeah.
have. Yeah. So what advice would you give to a young girl who wants to make a difference in her community and might be facing the same kind of challenge, which is biases that people hold regarding a young woman's capabilities, no matter what field it's in, even if it's a field that women do excel in and, features more, prominently in terms of leadership positions.
I think the first thing that we as young girls need to understand is that we are not alone. So sometimes when there's so many issues that are happening and we look at them and we get angry, we think we are the only ones who are noticing these issues. We're like, how is no one not standing up to this? How is no one so angry that these things are happening? So the first thing is to always remember that we're never alone. You might have a conversation with a fellow friend of yours and you realize that, oh, this person actually feels the same. So you try to work together with that friend because we can go so much when we are collaborating. We go so much when we are all working together. We cover such impact is experienced at a larger extent when we work together. So when you are alone, you feel as though you are isolated from the world. There are all these emotions that happen, which can also limit you. Another thing is that there is this invisible ceiling that we have placed in ourselves as women or as young girls. And that invisible ceiling is the voice that tells us that we are not capable, but we are capable because I see beautiful examples like you, Nina,
You're
and
so sweet. You should talk about yourself. I mean, it's such a young age. I was reading about all your accomplishments, and you've already tackled so many critical issues from gender equality to quality education to climate to hunger to, I mean, you name it, you've given inspirational speeches encouraging everyone to explore the STEM fields. And when we were talking, you mentioned I asked you if there's how many women are enrolled in your field of study. And would you like to talk about that? Because the numbers were low there as well, which I found surprising, again, given Namibia's ranking.
okay, yes. And time is so behind us, but let me just see what we can do.
Okay.
Yes. So in our mining engineering class, yeah, we are 15 of us, but there are only three girls in a class of 15 people.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
Oh,
that's just how much work we need to do. Even if we've come so far, there's still so much that we need to do.